This episode of Misery Hunters is brought to you by Paisley Craft Beer Co., Paisley's #1 and only craft beer venue. You can sit in and take away, and we've also just introduced a local delivery service. So if you live in the Renfrewshire area and are looking for craft beer, we can deliver the same day if you order before 1 o'clock. Next day delivery is well for any time after that. Minimum order is £20. Any orders over 60, you get free delivery. So what are you waiting for? Go to paisleycraftbeer.com. That's paisleycraftbeer.com.
Hi, this is Mark Jardin from the Misery Hunters podcast. I know you're all excited for what is a big week in podcast history. You're excited to sit down and listen to what is maybe the biggest and most exciting podcast in the history of our club. And we want you to enjoy yourselves. We want you to have a good time. You've earned it. We've got here. But also, stay safe. Don't take the piss. Try not to throw patio furniture at each other. Try not to smash glass. Be sensible, guys. Listen to the podcast. Have a dance. Sing with your mates. Have a drink. Enjoy a drink. But stay safe. And fuck Alex Ray.
Hello, you miserable bastards, and welcome to the Misery Hunters podcast. My name is Jamie Coburn, and with me is Mark Jardin.
Hello.
And that is it, because the rest are all shaving their heads, except from the already bald people.
And on their way to Seville as well, so
yeah,
enjoy yourselves, guys.
I think I've seen Ross already been thrown off a plane after sectarianly abusing a folk singer.
Yeah, taking Bevy straight out the trolley as well, I heard. So he's currently in Nantes trying to get a bus so that he can use his match ticket. Good luck, Ross.
Yeah. But we have 3 matches to talk about. I know it's been a while. And 3 games, 0 goals conceded. Pretty impressive. And we've actually got a win to talk about, so we'll talk about it right away. Dundee, 2-0. An absolute masterclass. Charlie Adam rolling back the years. Almost like he was in a St. Mirren shirt. Mark, you were at the game. You were live tweeting at the game. Over to you.
Yeah, to varying levels of success. Yeah, it was good. It was. I saw someone else mention this on Twitter now, and I've totally forgotten who it was. But to be able to just go and see us play and never really look and bother, and to put a couple of goals away and have a 2-goal cushion and just enjoy the football is a bit of a novel feeling. It's been quite a while since there wasn't really any jeopardy to something, and that was a Dundee team who, in every way, shape or form, looked relegated. I know we didn't quite do it. I think because of, was it Livingston that equalised against St Johnstone, 93rd minute or something, and kept it going for another week. But from Mark McGee's navy suit and brown shoes to Charlie Adams' crinkled forehead to Danny Mullen's pained expression, that was a team that just looked as if they were already stitching on cinched championship stickers to a very basic template shirt for next season in the championship. There really wasn't that much danger in the entire thing.
Yeah,
and I think you've touched on it already, but Charlie Adams' assist is, I think, one of those moments that we'll all remember exactly where we were for it. It's one of those goals that'll live long in the memory.
I was sitting in the shop with my girlfriend across from me as I went, "Oh, did you see Charlie Adam?" And obviously, her not knowing who Charlie Adam is, I had to explain. But,
is he not supposed to do that? It was one of those ones where it happens and everyone in the crowd, there's obviously that like straight out your seat elation to it, but you could almost see several thousand people turning to whoever's next to them and going, "Did that just happen? Like, is that an actual..." I mean, well, Charlie Adams having an absolute breakdown and walking back to the centre circle.
It was one of those ones, like, if you could just take the audio out from the live feed of it, where it was Charlie Adam crossing it, everyone going, Alex Greaves scoring it, yes! And then there is audible laughter.
Yeah. I think a special shout out as well for Chris Iwilimo and Simon Donnelly on Sports Scene saying that Charlie Adam only did that because he's so good. He's so talented. As if Messi had the ball at the touchline and would think, I'll tell you what, I'm good enough to land the ball in the 6-yard box for their striker in front of our goalie. Utter pish.
Great composure and finish from Alex Birdbath Grieve.
Friend of the podcast.
If you want his t-shirt, it is miseryhunters.co.uk.
T-shirt model, Alex Grieve.
He better be a t-shirt model. Do you know he actually, we didn't just go to the game and give him it. He wanted a t-shirt, and we got a bit suspicious when he said he wanted an XL. That's why that t-shirt looks huge in that thing. But guy's a surfer dude. If you look at his Instagram, he wears oversized t-shirts. We thought it was all good. We give him the t-shirt. We ask. First of all, I say, you need to wear them in many poses and some lovely New Zealand backgrounds. He had a chuckle. Mark reiterated that point when, it's probably going to my mate. Like, fuck you. We're giving it to you, Alex, and not your mate.
So we'll be withdrawing the Alex Grieve t-shirt from sale.
So you better get
very
on it
quickly. So it's now limited edition. If you want one, you need to get on that straight away. I think Grieve again played well. I think he's done himself a hell of a favour, I think, by putting in a really solid run of games for Robinson coming into the end of the season, and while he's deciding what next year's team's going to look like, how he's going to build that, what shape he wants it to play, then Grieve's absolutely in that conversation now, and I don't necessarily think he was, 4 or 5 weeks ago. I think he was a backup option. If Brophy's not fit, Grieve can do a job. We'll stick him on for 10 minutes if we need someone to run about. And I think he's shown he's got a lot more in his locker than that. He's a good finisher. I think we've not disputed that since he's come in. He's done well whenever he's had to. He's very proactive, gets himself into spaces where chances might happen. And it's been a while, I think, since we've had a striker that does it. Even Brophy, who I think is our most selfish in a positive sense striker, most natural finisher for quite a while. I don't think Brophy's that show up in the 6-yard box on the off chance that something falls your way type guy, and Grieve's done really well, and it's obviously coincided with such a big uptick in form from Curtis Main, which was touched on in the last podcast as well, and it was certainly mentioned at the Player of the Year to the poor man about 100 times, but he's shown in the last few games, I think, what we were all hoping we were getting at the start of the season. He's not necessarily there to be the guy, to be the goal threat in the team, but when he runs himself into the ground and does what he does and bullies people, he creates more for everyone around him. And then top that off with, honestly, one of the best finishes I think we've seen this season. If you take Ronan out of the equation and maybe Jay Henderson, I don't recall any finishes being as emphatic as that, and he's a right-footed player if I'm not mistaken either. So he's taken a crossfield ball from Marcus Fraser and laced it into the roof of the net on his weaker foot. It's a stunning goal, honestly. Yeah,
more of that. And I'm just going to make a point here. Usually we would wait a bit before we have a wee go at our fans, but see the fans that are still going on about how we need an out-and-out goal scorer. Do you know how many goals the top goal scorer in this league scored this season? 13. This is something that my mate pointed out to me down south, who was an observer, saying how to which I pointed to, saying all the grannies that could score for fun up here must have not jumped over the border. 13 goals was the top goal scorer in the league. There isn't an out-and-out goal scorer in this league, and
no, Charles Cook's not even an out-and-out striker himself. He's a wide option that's had a real purple patch this year. I think you look at teams like Celtic. I think Jackie Makis has ended up as joint top scorer with the same as Charles Cook. I think you've got Kyogo one behind him, Abada one goal further back, Turnbull still in double figures. That's the difference. It's not that these other teams, even Celtic and Rangers to an extent, are able to go out and sign perfect out-and-out goal scorers who score one in every two or less every game. They're better at sharing the goals around their team and creating more, and that's why I think we don't score as many goals as we could. It's not because Eamon Brophy and Conor Ronan have scored 7 or 8 league goals this season. It's because after that there's a big drop off. You've not got Curtis Main on the same amount of goals. You've not got Henderson pushing up. Kelty's maybe third. I've not really looked at the stats.
And I generally think if we play Kelty a bit, like the positions that we've been playing him in towards the end of the season, even when McGrath found himself out of the team, unfortunately for him, Connor Ronan then kind of get pushed out, and then when Connor Ronan's form, we kind of put him in the centre. Greg Kelty is going to be our main number 10 next season. And this is, I generally think we're going to see a lot more goals getting created for our strikers out of that. I also think obviously we should actually touch on this a bit later, we're still talking about the games, but Robinson goes out and signs 2 decent wingers or 1 decent winger, whatever. Someone who can get the ball in the box just in front of the strikers. Instead of going, I noticed that a few times against Livingston that like with Tanzer sort of hoofing the ball in to Grieve, who's not winning these headers, but he's not that type of striker. But if you put the ball a bit lower and in front of him, he's got a better chance of getting there. And he had again a great chance like that against Livingston, which we'll go on to talk about later because we're still talking about Dundee. I think there's a lot to look forward to being a St Mirren fan. I think, and I think so. I think it's annoying that we maybe said that last year after finishing the top 6, but this year I 100% believe it.
I think this year we're doing something different, and I think, not to sound like a complete moron, but I think that might be the difference. Every year we look positively at what's coming, and then the same tactics get rolled out and nothing much changes, whereas what we've had this year is a 12-game, in theory, we've had the 12-game settling in period where it didn't work at the start, but by the end, 4 consecutive clean sheets. There's obviously a bit of buy-in into what we're trying to do and how we're playing, and that's going to be added to over the summer. And when we come back next season, it's a fresh start compared to the last few years. It's something a bit different. So I think there is cause to expect something different next year, because we've gone out and been decisive and done something different. I think we'll probably touch on this with the Aberdeen game as well, but I think credit where it's due, that's the best Erdogan's looked in weeks, or was the best Erdogan had looked in weeks against Dundee. And, I don't think he's flawless, but no one else has been held to that standard, so I wouldn't hold that against him. And initially I thought of this as a negative, but actually the more I've looked back at the Dundee game, it's a positive. I think some of the best stuff that Erdogan did in that game was off the back of mistakes. He misplaced a pass, but was then right on top of it and winning the ball back, or he wasn't quite in the right position and someone got by him and he got back and made the tackle and then played a really decisive pass. And I think part of my frustration has maybe been, something like that's happened and he sulked a little bit or hasn't quite won that back. Whereas, as I say, credit to him in the Dundee game for sure. He stepped up, I think, and was an absolutely key part as to why in the end we ran over the top of him.
I think so. I think you could pick Ethan out for getting more criticism than probably any other one of our players at the moment, but I think that's just because we know he has that potential in him to be the player that he can be, and he's not been shown it. And as you said, if he's made a mistake here and there, he's been a bit petulant or sulky about it. If he's not really faced criticism well from the dugout, where he's responded back and ended up getting himself subbed off. So to see him he's lost the ball, but he's immediately won it back, and it's led to the second goal. It's really promising.
And twice, it's twice he wins the ball in 50-50s as well before that goal, and then you've got someone being a bit canny and Charlie Adam, and kind of doing that. I'm going to help you up, but what I'm actually doing is slowing you down, and then you can't be part of the ball moving forward. And you can see Ethan in the background when Fraser's swinging the ball away over to Main, that everyone's telling him where to go and pushing his way back up, and a bit of that kind of fight and battle kind of being aimed in the right direction, I think, is a real positive. I think that's what we all want to see. The Dundee game could very easily have been a foot off the gas. We're better than these guys. Their manager's a FUD. We can kind of just let the game happen. And what we actually saw was, no, this is an opportunity to get a win under our belts, and a real step up in quality on some of what we've seen in more recent weeks. I think the Hibs game, Hibs loss was a particularly passive performance from us at home. Yeah. So to go out and do the polar opposite to that against Dundee was a real positive, and it was just so nice to leave the stadium happy.
Yeah,
for the first time in a while.
And what's the stat as well? That's our first game we've won by 2 goals in like however many.
Since tellies were in colour, I think it's the first time that since people started using satellites to watch telly, and Rob McLean's been commentating on one of the other games, and there's been a team ending in Y in one of the tiers of Scottish football that we've ever. Those stats can get right in the bin, man. I hate them so much.
All right, never mind then. We'll move on to the Livingston game, and the big talking point I want to bring up in this is I finally got a kebab pie, and holy hell, I'm extremely happy to announce that we will give it the Misery Hunter seal of approval, official now. So you can see that wee sticker on the pies next season, because I hadn't eaten, I was hungry, I'd just finished work, I got there, I bought 2 pies, I bought 1 kebab pie and 1 black pudding pie. The black pudding pie, very good, but that kebab pie was excellent. So good that I was raging I didn't just get 2 kebab pies, and I sat there for most of the second half of the first half, sitting going, can I justify having 3 pies? I didn't go through with it. Social pressure made me say no, but I would.
You say social pressure, I kind of talked you off. I think
you said
having made
on you go. I believe you said.
There was a tone to it. There was definitely a on you go, because this is something I'll definitely tweet about and try and shame you about if you do it. I actually, having made plans to catch up with our pal Alex after the game and give him his t-shirt. That's the first game I think I've watched alongside one of the fellow podcasters.
I hope it was enlightening for you.
Yeah, it was. I suddenly got a real tang of sympathy for all the folk that have to put up your shite in the West End most of the time.
Half the time I just talk shit. Not even about the game.
Podcast,
it's like a live version of the podcast sitting next to me where we seem to be talking about football, but I've talked more about this pie than I have in.
Yeah, most of the conversation, to be fair, was about the pie as well, because there really isn't that much to touch on in the game. It wasn't one for the history books at all. Flynn getting a rare start was really positive. I was
chest infection.
Yeah, kind of battled through it, and it was a real shame to see him go off for what I think we all assumed at the time was his last appearance, certainly his last home appearance, and to have it ended with an injury when, I've seen some criticism of these performance, but I actually thought he had quite a good game. He showed up breaking into the box and had a shot, which most of our midfielders haven't done for quite a while, and I think that's what you get from Flynn. He's just a really technically capable and intelligent footballer who tries really hard, and I will have as many of them around the squad as we can say, to be honest. So
that's the thing. Robinson said after the game, because we kind of hung about and eavesdropped into the conversations.
Looked like 2 guys had been given detention.
Yeah. Robinson said to the journalist that he knows Flynn for a while. He had him at Oldham. He's a player they can trust. And if he didn't say he'd offered him a contract, but he did say that basically if there's a place for him as a squad player, and if he wants to be a squad player, then he can stay, kind of thing.
Yeah, he wants him around.
Yeah, and that's clearly a drop in wages. He probably could went down maybe a league or 2. You could see Flynn rocking back up at Falkirk or something.
He came through at Falkirk. He played at Falkirk. He played his kind of first team.
Because he was at Liverpool, wasn't he? He came through the Liverpool youth.
Yeah.
And then I think he went to Falkirk on loan and then signed for them permanently, possibly, I think.
Yeah.
So you could see him there probably in a more first team capacity, but he's clearly bought into whatever probably took a wage cut and signed a new contract, and I mean, more than happy with that.
All power to him. I think there's such a need around your squad to have that, and I'd had a few conversations about this when on Twitter over the weekend after the Aberdeen game and whatnot, about should we be offering deals to these guys, and there was a bit of resistance which surprised me, and I can't remember the guy's name now, but someone who kind of come back a few times and said, I just don't think he improves the first team now, and I don't think any of us are arguing that he's a first team pick or that we're signing him because we need to improve that. I think you need to be so conscious, and it's so true of Aberdeen with Considine as well. you need to be so conscious of scorched earth, I think, when you're trying to build something new. And I think this was maybe some people's fears with Robinson when he first started talking after games and talking about trying to get his own players in and own style, is that, there's plenty of good things about our squad just now. There's a lot of players who've made a real connection with the fans, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
There's players who put a really solid effort in, who've maybe got a bit more quality than they've shown at times this year or had the chance to show. And you don't want to get rid of them just because you want to bring in guys that know how you play a 4-3-3 and will fit it. And I think Flynn's the kind of key example of that. By keeping someone like Flynn, who the guys that have been here for a few years know and like, who the young players will be learning from already, and he's an example there to, almost a kind of James Milner type. You're not saying he's there to be the guy, but you're never worried about Ryan Flynn coming onto the park. We're always going to be a slightly stronger unit with him on the park. We're going to have younger players who've got a better idea of what it's like to be out there, of what it's like to when things go well in Paisley and what it's like when things don't go well in Paisley, and that's priceless. Honestly, I think him on a year deal could well be the most kind of savvy bit of contract business we do this summer. Genuinely, I think he'll probably play less than 15 games next year. But I think if things go well for us next year, he'll be a real key part of it.
And if you've got a few injuries and you need to put a midfielder on, he can do it. If you've got a few injuries in the defence, you can put him on. He'll do it. He'll do a job. He's versatile. And yeah, I'm pleased that he's signed a new contract. And we still have the Flynny Esta t-shirt available.
Yeah,
miseryhunters.co.uk. Do you know what I noticed today, actually? Sorry, when I was searching, the Jamie McGrath t-shirt's still online. I'll need to fix that.
Yeah, if anyone wants a Jamie McGrath t-shirt, you'll need to buy that in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
So we might start tagging Wigan fan accounts. Although I don't know if they're going to be that bothered either by the sounds of it. Jamie who? No, I was just going to say about Flynn. I think Tate's going to be in the squad for a very similar purpose next year. And also I think Flynn is part of that. If our left back, if Tanser gets injured next year, Tate's more than likely going to be our left back. That leaves you with no cover at right back for whoever we've got that'll end up playing there, if it's Fraser or if it's someone else. Flynn covers that gap. It creates so much more stability. We shouldn't be in a position like we have been the last 6 weeks. Next year where we've got 13 first team players or whatever it is. And he's also, James mentioned that we hung back and got the chance to hear Robinson talking. He really did stress that Flynn went into this game on the back of a chest infection where he was unwell, but he was asked to play and he put himself forward for it.
Andrew Christie said he whited on the pitch.
Yeah, I'd missed it. And then took a big knock and was unhappy to come off. He wasn't happy to come off. Give me 10 of those guys next year to fill roles around the squad. 100%.
No, I totally agree. Any other points from that match you want to talk about, or do we just go straight on to the next now?
I was trying to think if there was any other nuggets of information off the... we got to hang about.
Scott Tanzel said that there was no rift in the dressing room. He said that there was obviously a lot of chatter from the fans, which shows you that the players do see what you guys write online, and most likely that Facebook page. So come on, guys, be a bit wiser. But he said that he was more than happy to stay, and I think we can clearly see that from like the players that get released.
Yeah, exactly.
That weren't offered contract, like 2 players that didn't get offered contracts that have left the club.
Yeah, and if anyone's going to tell me that Alan Power is one of those players who would have kicked off because of that, we were talking about that after the game. We were probably, was it about an hour after the game that we were still at the stadium to get, and 45 minutes into that, you've got Power and who else was it that come on late? Henderson, who'd come on late, who obviously hadn't had the chance to go. They'd warmed up but never really warmed down. Henderson doing a kind of functional warm down, doing what he needs to do. Alan Power was treating that warm down as if it was, like his warm up before playing in a cup final. He's so professional, and I know that his form's maybe not quite been for the last wee while as it was at the start of the season when he was, maybe my favourite signing of the season at that point. But that is a guy who doesn't know how to not give 100%. There's like literally no question. So if you take Power out of the equation, you're talking about Matt Miller. Basically, you're saying
Here,
our
that
dressing
was
room was splintered because of Matt Miller.
there was a wee guy outside the stadium who was more than happy that he had Matt Miller's signature on a scarf. Never heard
Matt Miller on my scarf.
I think we both turned to each other and went, "Oh, poor soul."
That scarf will be on eBay for £4. But I think Tans are fairly unequivocal about how everyone was behind Robinson, and it wasn't really anything to it. Robinson, interesting guy. Like hearing him, with the guard down a wee bit, just kind of having a chat. It was quite clear that Brophy wouldn't even have been on the bench in normal circumstances. That he'd taken an injection to be on the bench. I think Tate took an injection to play in the Levy game, or on the Dundee game, would that have been? I think Power maybe took an injection. Main had surgery the day after the Levy game. It said that they held it back as late as they could, but if they didn't take this appointment, it was going to be another 4 weeks, and then he would miss some of pre-season.
Yeah.
So Main was kind of willing to get that done now, so that he was ready. All really positive stuff. It's not a secret that there's been 3 or 4 pre-contracts already agreed. He said, I think he's hoping for another 3 or 4 on top of that, or something like it. So all positive stuff. And Davy Martindale took the piss out of him.
Yeah,
which was good fun. And
we could mention a little exclusive, but I don't want to get people's hopes up, because I genuinely don't think it's going to happen. I think we just done it as I think we can say that. No, can we not?
No, sorry, just the weather outside my window has just gone absolutely tonto.
All right, I was very confused.
I thought there was an earthquake because it's so loud.
I thought you were like, you better not, but
no, give it away.
We have made an offer for Connor Ronan. Whether that's an extension on a loan, I probably will be. I can't imagine it being a transfer. However, I've also seen the list of other clubs that have given an offer to Connor Ronan, and I will say there's no chance he's going to be with us next season. Not to talk things up, but if Scott Burns got a look at the list Jamie has, he would jizz his pants. He would absolutely jizz his pants. Get a better source, Scott. Yeah, so that's a small exclusive for you, but I can't imagine. Don't get your hopes up. Don't be tweeting them and all this kind of stuff, because I genuinely don't think it's going to happen at all. Although we've asked the question, and that's all we can ask for. But he does apparently like the club. It's the first club that's properly taken, fans have taken to him, so made him feel welcome. So that's what you like to hear. You never know. There's a chance, the tiniest of chances is still there, but I mean... So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah, literally that. I don't think we've got any more exclusives, do we? Well, maybe later. No, I think that's... I think that might be us. The Aberdeen game. We'll talk about the Aberdeen game. I mean, it was pretty much like a Goodwin shitfest. That team was they were not scoring. They had a few good chances. Anik saved us. We had a couple of chances here and there. I mean, we played defensively quite well. Yeah. There's not many negatives to take from it. The only positives we can take from it is that Goodwin get booed, and I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, I'm going to boil down my take on the game into 3 key points. Firstly, absolutely no foul on McCrory for their from McCrory for their goal. So that should have stood. So get that right up. I think they were saying maybe it was like someone standing in front of Anik. Really? I think so. I thought the talk was there was a foul. It was just something impeaching the goalkeeper, I think, was something. I mean, I haven't properly seen a replay, but they tried to show the replay from way behind the other goals, and you can kind of see someone near them. Whether that's the case, I don't know, but that's what I believe it was disallowed for. I mean, bearing in mind my second point, I could absolutely believe that they've just made something up, to try and justify it, because I mean, it wasn't a penalty, Aberdeen fans, so you can pipe down. No, it was a push because there's absolutely a push. I mean, hilarious that it wasn't given because it's supposed to hit the back of the head. Maybe the most obvious handball since Porteous batted it out there against us. The referee got his decision wrong, but the outcome was correct. Is that the correct way of saying that? Yeah, I think proof that the system works. Yeah, 2 wrongs make it right. Correct, and nothing more needs to be said. You moaning
torn-faced northeastern bastards.
Oh, that's racist against Aberdeen fans.
No, northeastern could include lots of different. Cove fans are included in that as well.
Oh, well.
Yeah, there's no specificity here. That's fine. I wasn't at the game. I was driving home from having been down in England brewing beer.
That's not going to be available in my shop, but I believe I will still get a sample of some kind.
Yeah, we've not put the necessary label on it for you to sell to customers, but we'll maybe have a chat about something under the table. Yeah, so I got the pleasure of listening to Sports Scene's coverage of the game, and it was really nice the day before, where you had 2 games covered live and open all mics to go between all 3 games that were on, and the BBC kept the red carpet rolled out for the final day of the league season, where they only offered radio commentary across all 3 formats of the Hibs game, and put Willie Miller up to Pittodrie to keep all the Sunderland fans in the loop with what was happening there. And I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to get petty. I'm going to show you just how pathetic I was the entire way. I kept count in the second half of how many times our players or club were mentioned, and they weren't. They threw to Willie Miller twice in 45 minutes, and on both occasions he spoke about Aberdeen for a minute, mentioned that Al Nick had made a couple of good saves, and then passed it back, and not so much as the club name was mentioned. And then they got to the end of the game. I think they said at one point, Aberdeen, probably did enough to beat St Mirren today. They mentioned the final league positions, and then spoke about Jim Goodwin and Andy Considine for 45 minutes. There was literally no coverage of St Mirren on the final day of the league season when there were only 6 teams playing. No mention whatsoever. This is a team who, because of that result, finished above Aberdeen. It honestly makes no sense to me whatsoever why that's tolerated. And I'm not a St Mirren bias guy. I'm not. I don't think anyone cares about us, but I think that's the point. Mm-hmm. I think that's the point. You're not going to tell me that 45% of your listening audience is from Aberdeen, so you need to keep them happy. I understand why you pander to the Old Firm, right? There was 6 teams playing on Sunday. Talk about them. Actually mention what they're doing. Talk about them. Some people, either because they're driving home from England or for a variety of other reasons, maybe don't have access to St Mirren TV or to drive up to Pittodrie for an away game and rely on radio coverage to know what's happening at the game. And you literally didn't tell them. It's a game in your top flight from a team that finished above the team you spoke about for the entire afternoon. Honestly thought it was a bit embarrassing. And that's the last I'll say on it, Jamie. I'm sorry.
There you go. And that's why we need Misery Hunters on BBC Sports Sounds comms.
Richard Gordon stepping down. I'll step up if they ask me. Other than that,
I think you've covered the game pretty well. I don't think we need to talk about anything else.
No, Andrew. Andrew did go. He had a right good tilt at getting steaming for 2 full days in Aberdeen, by all accounts, and was our man in the stands, but then hasn't bothered to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
He said Ethan Erdogan had a good game. He said that there was lots of inflatable snakes for Jim Goodwin. He said Goodwin came over to clap to St Mirren fans and get booed and seemed really raging about it. And they're all valid points. He also said Aberdeen are, and I'm quoting, fucking shit. And anyone who thinks that they should have won 3 or 4-0 is absolutely at it.
Yeah, I think he said something along the lines of it is understated how bad Aberdeen were.
Yeah. The only other thing that I want to mention, other than Aidan Gilmartin getting on for his debut, is a real positive. We've got a couple of young strikers who'll be in the squad next year, so I wouldn't expect them to get too many run-outs next year, but any first team minutes are a good thing, and hopefully that's a bit of motivation to push himself on. The only other thing I wanted to mention was Andy Considine on what was very much Andy Considine Day, putting out maybe the longest retirement post in Instagram history, in which he thanked every manager he ever played for, including Stephen Glass, and didn't mention Goodwin.
That's cool.
Peak level snidiness. Yeah, incredible.
I mean, even Ethan Erdogan got it. I know Ethan Erdogan can be a bit of a sass queen.
The library is open.
Yeah, he put a wee post up on Instagram of him shaking hands with Goodwin, in which Lee Erwin even added a little bit of sass into it and all. So
yeah, all in favour of that. I've said this enough times, but I'll repeat it again. I do not hold anything against Jim Goodwin for leaving and taking a bigger job for more money, because he's a guy with kids and you get one career, and every last one of us would do the same or comparable if given the opportunity. There is absolutely no bitterness for that whatsoever. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy it when it all goes tits up, and I can't be a bit resentful for some of the stuff that he left behind. Mm-hmm. Get it up him. Doesn't mean I'll love him any less. He'll always be the captain for the League Cup and all the rest of it. But for now, as the manager of a team only one place below us in the league, get it right up him.
He's a snake. I mean, I'll say that. Like, when I say this, I don't mean it, but I do. So,
yeah, I'm with you on that.
Right, we'll move on. The contracts have been talked. Flynn has signed a new deal. It has been confirmed that Gogic has been offered a new deal. Please, Gogic. Please stay. McCarthy and Jack are both away. They were both offered new contracts. They rejected them because of going to other clubs. Jack Annick has been now confirmed the signing of Cardiff. We kind of already knew that was happening. Conor McCarthy.
Agreement for both, I think. Mm-hmm. For Annick, I think for him to get the chance to go down and play second tier at a bigger stage is well earned. And also I think Cardiff are probably getting a bargain out of that as well, because I think he can easily cope with that level.
And McCarthy, we don't know where he is going. There's some early rumours that it's Dundee United. Whether that turns out to be the case, don't know. The amount of money they're throwing about, that's the thing.
I can totally see him in Aberdeen, to be honest.
Yeah, to be fair, Goodwin brought him here, didn't he? They're needing a defender. They were looking.
I don't think Conor McCarthy's the answer, but by all means.
I mean, he can go there, prove us wrong if he wants. Like Charles Dunn probably wasn't the answer, but we were rumoured to be getting six figures until he went and injured himself again. So it makes sense that the obvious replacement you would then go for is Conor McCarthy. Although, would McCarthy want to play for Goodwin knowing that he signed him and then immediately try to replace him the next season?
I don't know. Stranger things have happened.
That is true. Transfers that we're obviously aware that we're bringing in O'Hara, Carson, Bacchus, someone else?
A younger from Morecambe, wide forward.
I'm looking forward to see him. By the way, I think he's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm going to forget everything I've ever seen about us signing strikers who've mostly played in the bottom couple of tiers of English football with 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 goal records, and I'm going to assume that he's going to be a great success.
Also, does anyone watch the TikToks of Ryan Reynolds doing the highlights of the Wrexham games? And he did the one recently with Dagenham and Redbitch where he talks about Junior Marias like twice.
Really?
Yeah, because Marias gets a shot and then he scores, and it's like, goal Marias, and you're like, oh, Ryan Reynolds knows who Junior Marias is. That's an interesting turn of events that I don't think anyone would have expected.
No, expect him to pitch up at Wrexham next season.
Yeah, I don't really have any other rumours that I've heard of.
Liam Donnelly and Liam Grimshaw both been touted,
but by Motherwell fans, and they're both similar players in the same position.
They are both out of contract, as far as I'm aware, this summer, and at least Grimshaw, I'm sure, was signed by Robinson for Motherwell, and potentially both.
And Donnelly's Northern Irish as well, so
yeah, I mean, and that would suit the sectarian agenda.
Yeah.
Get McCarthy.
That's why McCarthy and Power both left.
That's why Ronan's gone.
Yeah.
I've seen the two they mentioned, but to be honest, I haven't seen much more beyond that. Good to see Dean McMaster get name dropped as someone that will be stepping up into the first team next year. I think I've been signing him fairly consistently on Football Manager for 3 years at this point. So good to see him get the step up.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about before we move on?
I don't know. It's a real shame to see Matt Miller go. I don't know what we're going to do next season. I'm at a loss. Him and Kyle McAllister, I'm just sick of
Kyle
the gut.
McAllister's finally gone. That's probably why Ross isn't
Apparently, Robinson told Kyle he wasn't getting a new deal, and it really split the Partick Thistle dressing room.
That's why Ross isn't actually on. Like, we make jokes at the start, but he's actually running about naked around about Foxbar, celebrating the fact that McAllister's finally gone. So you see a nude man running by.
Keeps it up, he won't get his flight to Seville.
But yes, we will be back after this.
Hi, you're Alan Power and listen to Misery Hunters.
It's so good. We're not going to get much play out of that next season because he's gone, so we thought we'd bring it in. You're Alan Power listening to Misery Hunters.
Can I exclusively reveal that we played that to Joe Shaughnessy after the Livia game, and he genuinely looked shocked. And also, friend of the show, Ashley McGinn, wife of outgoing Kilmarnock player Stephen McGinn, I think mentioned that the Kilmarnock players were also aware of it. Probably because I sent it to her with that express intention. So hopefully that begins to make its way through Scottish football.
I mean, James Hunter had a bit of concern on his face, but now it's not his problem anymore.
No. Could you play it again, Jamie?
Oh,
please?
Yeah, 2 seconds. Let me just get it back up.
Hi, you're Alan Power and listen to Misery Hunters.
Listening to Misery Hunters.
Serious consideration to there being a You're Alan Power t-shirt next season. If more than 10 people respond after this podcast is posted to say that they want a You're Alan Power t-shirt, then
yeah, what you need to do, if we get 10 people to reply to the podcast post that just says You're Alan Power with a gif that is of someone completely wasted or drunk or something, we will get a You're Alan Power
t-shirt. We'll release a You're Alan Power t-shirt. Yep. I'm happy to commit to that.
Mm-hmm. We'll get that done for you. But it's time to hand it over to Mark. We still don't have another jingle, so unfortunately, until we get another jingle, it's going to be called
Fuck You.
It's going to be called Fuck You? I don't know about that. It's not very nice to introduce people to the Fuck You. But
no regrets.
Hello, this is Billy Mehmet, and this is the Billy Mehmet Hall of Fame. Let's do the dance.
Let's do the dance. Enough of all that previous silliness, and let's get to a Hall of Fame named after Billy Mehmet, and let's stick someone in there who played less than 20 games for the club. Yeah.
I love the fact that the Hall of Fame's named after a guy who, while desperately trying to score his first goal for the club, went through one-on-one. This is my best memory of Billy Mehmet, is when he was one-on-one with the goalkeeper at Queen of the South, and he stood on the ball.
That takes real skill. Kanchelskis does that, and he's considered a genius. Billy Mehmet does it, and you're still bringing it up 18 years later. Mm-hmm. It is what it is.
But yeah, 20 games for the club. Who could this be?
Yeah, we've had a lot of fairly serious Hall of Fames recently. Put in some actual club legends, so I thought it was to bring that screeching to a halt.
I love this man. Just saying, I do love.
Oh, he's a hero. He deserves to go in. He is the definition of a cult hero. He's going straight in. John Sutton, Johan Djorkaeff, Grant Adam, Anton Ferdinand joins a long, long list of footballing dynasty's brightest stars to rock up in Paisley. How's that for an introduction, Jamie?
I was wondering where it was going, especially with Grant Adam. I was like, what?
No, we're not talking about people who've got questionable records.
So we're not talking about Rio then?
Oh,
you went there.
No, we're talking about Anton. He's just a normal man, an innocent man. Born in February 1985, Anton graduated from the same West Ham academy as his brother Rio in 2003, and established himself in their backline for a tilt at returning to the Premier League. He did that in his second season, and in total played there for 5 fairly successful seasons. I'll blast through this till we get to the good stuff, in case you wonder why I'm not coming up for breath. Roy Keane snapped him up, I think, for a 7-figure sum to take him to Sunderland, and although initially did quite well, Steve Bruce came in and made maybe the biggest error of his calamitous managerial career and punted Ferdinand out within a couple of seasons. He returned to London to sign for Neil Warnock at QPR, but before the end of that season was playing for Mark Hughes. And before Christmas the following season, he was playing for Harry Redknapp. And an absolutely, totally normal and definitely financially solvent first 11 that included Julio Cesar, Jose Basingwa, Park Ji-sung, Sean Wright-Phillips, and not Peter Odemwingie. Yeah, as things do when you just sign internationalists who've got 85 caps but also have 33 or 34 years on the clock. It wasn't to last, and he ended up out on loan for a couple of years. He was in Turkey. He was back in England. At one point, he almost signed for the Polis in Thailand, which I'm not making up. Polis United in Thailand, who also owned Reading at that point, and then he signed for Reading.
Billy Mehmet played in Thailand. There's your link.
Yeah, and Singapore, and Australia, and North Cyprus. You know, he's a globetrotter, and very much the Anton Ferdinand of his day. Yeah, that makes lots of sense. Yeah, so he travelled around a lot. You know, he went wherever he was needed, and then eventually, in I guess mid-2018, a personable PE teacher by the name of Oren Kearney lit the competent defender signal and aimed it into the night sky. Following the Alan Stubbs wrecking ball swinging through Fergusley until just after the closure of the transfer window, Kearney was left with a subpar squad and limited options. So the availability of a former Premier League and under-21 international defender was not one to be sniffed at. In many ways, we can thank Anton Ferdinand not just for his service, but also for retiring Josh Heaton, for which we'll always be grateful. He showed all the signs of having had a lengthy career across multiple continents. He seemed to be battling age and experience and scars and injuries to get on the pitch every week, but never gave anything less than 100% in a very assured performance. He initially signed a 3-month deal to help Kearney out, and very quickly in the January window was convinced to make his stay last the entire season. We also signed Popescu. We shored things up and looked a bit more of a steady ship. So as the season went on, Ferdinand's role became more of a balance of keeping clean sheets when he was asked upon, but also guiding those that did make it on the team sheet a bit more regularly. You know, there's only 18 or so games to talk about, which I appreciate isn't a lot, but I think there's probably one that deserves to be spoken about in a bit more detail. And it was also his last appearance in the second leg of our playoff, stepping in for an injured Gary Mack just before extra time in the playoff. We survived a further 30 minutes, some of which were down to 10 men after Dickens Nazon tried to take someone's head off in the middle of the park, and got us 2 penalties and ultimately deny Robbie Nielsen any penalty scored or promotion to the Premier League. Asked about the day, Anton had quite a lot to say, and I'm going to read it out verbatim. Said it was pretty emotional. He was here from the start, just after the new manager came in. I'm pleased for the boys. I'm pleased for the manager. I've been in a situation like this before and it's not nice. I had to draw on all of my experience to help the boys get through it. Seeing what the boys achieved has put a real smile on my face. I spoke to some of them before they took their penalties. I've missed a few myself. I know what the pressure's like, and we handled it superbly. I told them to pick a spot, and I told them to be assertive. We did, they didn't, and we stayed up. Shortly after that, at the end of the season, it was announced that Anton was moving on. There was more than one fan in the crowd, including myself, who was keen for him to stay on if we could have convinced him, but he wanted to go away and play a bit more football than I think he assumed he was going to get. But he did take time after that to thank the fans. You know, the North Bank had taken Fashion Sakala's song at Rangers and changed the words to it.
Josh McGuinness and his time travelling machine.
Yeah, they'd stolen what was a well-known Rangers song for Fashion Sakala.
His hot drum time machine. No, that doesn't work.
I don't know. No, I respect that you tried it. Yeah. I respect you tried that, and I'm just going to keep talking so that it's really uncomfortable for you to try and cut that bit out. And I'm going to refer back to it as well, so you can't edit it out. He thanked the fans. He said, you know, he felt properly loved, and he summed up his time at the end. And I'll finish our induction by saying, I haven't played as much football as I would have liked, but 100% I've been behind this team and these boys. I've done all I can to help the team. That's just in my DNA. And I think that's the perfect place to leave it. So welcome to the Billy Mehmet Hall of Fame, Anton Ferdinand.
Welcome, Anton. Do you know, see when that picture revealed, like, of in the dressing room, and like we hadn't announced he was signing or he was on trial or anything, and I was just like, is that Anton Ferdinand sitting there? As someone who used to be a West Ham season ticket holder, I am very much nearly jizzed my pants.
Delighted.
I love a West Ham St Mirren link because I can get my English pals that support West Ham to take some sort of interest in St Mirren, and the only person I had really before that was Bally Mehmet.
What a man.
So having Anton being there and being clearly the better of the two Ferdinand brothers, because some of the shit Rio comes out with, it's just a dick, isn't he?
Should also be mentioned, actually, this is after the induction, because I finished the induction perfectly, if I do say so myself. If you haven't watched his documentary about the racism he faced in English football and how that was dealt with by the press and how it's been dealt with since, go and seek it out, because it is genuinely one of the most powerful hours of telly on the subject of football that I've seen for a very, very long time. It's really, really well done. And it gives you a real insight into just how tough it was for someone in his position to have to put up with some shite that he should never have had to put up with.
Yep, I totally agree. Miseryhunters.co.uk for, the Flynning t-shirt, the future Alex Goggins t-shirt when he signs that contract. Get your Alex Grieve t-shirt. We may develop another one, maybe Birdbath, I don't know. Hoping this kind of Birdbath banter doesn't drive Grieve out the club.
Yeah, I'd feel pretty bad and personally responsible if that was the case.
But thanks for listening. We do have a few summer shows planned, but you know what we're like when we say we have shows planned and then we don't do them. You don't know how hard it is sometimes to get a few people on a podcast organised. It can be difficult. And people tell you they've got all the time in the world, and right up to the moment, I can't make it. And you're like,
I mean, some of the guys have had to be in Dortmund, Braga, and Leipzig this year.
I know.
And Seville, so it's tough to kind of wrangle them round to get them on podcast.
But we do have stuff planned, and we also maybe have a small wee competition planned as well. So keep your ears open for that. I was going to say your eyes open, but keep your ears open for that, because we're going to try and make it listener only. We're not going to put it on social media or anything. It would just be for the listeners, the actual people that listen to the show. There was going to be another point I was going to make there as well. Oh yeah, people who have listened, we may have mentioned that we were going to do a Eurovision show, and it never happened because we just didn't have the time. But before we go, what was your opinions? Did you get to see any of this Eurovision?
Yeah, I actually watched. So the best bit of Eurovision, I think everyone can agree, is the voting bit. And I watched it right up until the voting started, and then switched off and watched The Big Lebowski in its entirety.
That's fair enough.
Out my bin.
The best part of it, I have to say, was ballad after ballad after ballad, and then Moldova came on with an absolute banger.
I am a Moldova stan, and have been.
That's the third
Jamie
time.
Jamie can vouch for that I have spoken almost exclusively about Moldova since we started talking about doing something about Eurovision, because they are the dons.
That's the third time they've represented Moldova, and I was like, well, I guess Moldova might not have a big musical pool, but do you know the controversy of that song? Actually, they think it's there's a lot of anger about it, because it's about the translated is about them being on a train going from Moldova to Bucharest, and it's they think it's something to do with a unification between Romania and Moldova. So it's angered a few people in Moldova. But you don't choose to listen to Misery Hunters to hear about these facts. But
no. Fair play to Norway for sticking that Eamon Brophy tribute in. That was good.
From Ben from A1, apparently.
Yeah, that's really weird.
But thanks for listening, and fuck John Terry.
Fuck Rebecca Vardy.